What is going on, everyone, and welcome back to the Fancy Nuts UK show. It's a late night show right here on YouTube, and I am riding solo tonight. So, what we've got in store is the usual segments, and I will be joined by some friends of the show. So, people that have been on before, and just general good folks, really. But let's kick it off by looking back on week 5. So, sorry, actually, last week I was joined by one of the original Fantasy Nuts lads, Connor, and we had a little look back at the Vikings and Saints game, which we both attended together. And it was a brilliant day out. Anybody that's been to the Giants and Packers this week will have experienced Tottenham Hotspur Stadium and what they have to offer over there. And I'll get into that game in a little bit. But looking back on week 5, so with the quarterbacks, Josh Allen, he led the way yet again in week 5. He threw 4 touchdowns and a total amount of yards of 466, including his rushing yards, of course, racking up 36.2 PPR points. So another phenomenal display for the Buffalo Bills quarterback. Geno Smith and Carson Wentz. Now, they're the ones that are standing out for me. They've carried on their impressive starts for our fantasy football teams. If you've got them in a Superflex league, there's no doubt you're starting them every week. I'd consider getting them in even in a 1QB league now. They was the QB 4 and 6 respectively in PPR this week. And it was another great showing from both of them. But let's move on to the running backs. And you had Leonard Fournette and Austin Eckler. They led the way this week. So Eckler had 16 carries for 173 yards. He was 4 from 4 on his targets from Justin Herbert. He caught all 4 of them for only 26 yards, 1 rushing touchdown, 1 receiving touchdown, totting up to 35.9 fantasy points. Leonard Fournette had exactly the same amount of points, plus he had a rushing touchdown and a receiving touchdown, the same as Eckler. 2 less carries and only 56 yards. So like nearly 120 yards rushing less. But points mean prizes, as I always say. He reeled in 10 of 11 targets for 83 yards. So that's 10 PPR points just from catching the football. Monster performances from both of them from 2 different angles. Obviously, Eckler with the rushing yards, Lenny with the catches was an absolute PPR dream. Josh Jacobs for the Raiders, he also topped 30 points. But for the first time in 5 weeks, it seems all the usual suspects, if you like, they came out swinging. So you had Alvin Kamara, Christian McCaffrey, Derrick Henry, Dalvin Cook. All of them went over 20 PPR points and over 100 scrimmage yards, which is absolutely delightful for all of us fantasy managers to see. Wide receivers, Gabe Davis for the Buffalo Bills, he led the week. Now, he only caught 3 of his targets, and 2 of those was in the end zone. So he had 2 touchdowns. That's 12 points straight away. 171 yards on 3 catches. So he's shown his big playability yet again, but this sort of thing, it's going to happen multiple times throughout the year, but it's just predicting when it will happen, which of course will be very hard. 32.1 points that was. Diggs led the way for the Bills yet again. He reeled in 8 of his 11 targets, also over 100 plus yards. And my boy Justin Jefferson, he also topped 30 points. He caught 12 or 13 from Cousins, who was on fire at the start of that game on the weekend. A new personal best for Justin Jefferson since entering the league, reeling in 12 passes. But Tyler Lockett, for me, he's put up another big week with Geno Smith, who I mentioned earlier. Lockett was the wide receiver 4 in the week and currently very, very quietly going about his business as the wide receiver 8 on the year in PPR. Tight end, finally. Taysom Hill, of course, led the way this week without catching a pass or even being targeted. But for me, with the true tight ends, Travis Kelce and Mark Andrews coming through in 2nd and 3rd, and an absolutely mad stat line For Travis Kelce, 8 targets, 7 receptions, normal, fine. Only 25 yards, but he got 4 touchdowns on the game. Absolutely crazy stat line. Hayden Hurst and David Njoku, they carried on their impressive starts to the season as tight end 5 and 6 on the week. Tyler Higbee with another plethora of targets behind Cooper Kupp in LA. He caught 7 of 10 this week. Now, Taysom Hill, let's just go back to him quickly. He's a tight end 3 in PPR in points per game with 14.7 points currently. He's had 1 target, which he caught for 2 yards through the first 5 weeks. That is not a tight end. Yes, it's potentially a bit of a cheat code if you like, but the same thing as Gabriel Davis. Good luck predicting those boom weeks. Now, I said I'd head back to the Giants and Packers who came to London. So Aaron Rodgers and the Green Bay Packers, it was their first time over here. They welcomed Big Blue, the New York Giants, to London for the second game at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium this year. And it was another good one. We have been spoiled with these first 2 games in London this season. The Denver Broncos and Jacksonville Jaguars have a lot to live up to when they meet. I believe it's in week 8 at Wembley. But it was Big Blue who, with the come from behind victory in week 5, taking their season record to 4-1 now. And I just want to firstly commend the job Brian DeBole has been doing since he's become head coach in New York. Positive play calling, with barely any receivers. Of course, Sterling Shepard looks like he was getting hot before horrifically got ruled out for the rest of the season. Kenny Galladay's doing fuck all since he's gone to New York. Kadarius Toney has done fuck all since he was drafted by him. Darius Slayton stepped up as the wide receiver 1 in London. He caught 6 of 7 for 79 yards with a very flexible 13.9 PPR points. Rookie Daniel Bellinger, the tight end. He had a tight end 1 week this week, finished as the tight end 11. He had a rushing touchdown as well. But Green Bay, they failed to get the run game going, really. I know Aaron Jones had a few yards. Randall Cobb, he was absolutely peppered with 13 targets from Rodgers. Lazard had 8 targets. He reeled 4 of them in with a touchdown. But it wasn't enough from MVP Aaron. He's currently only the QB 19 on the year. So in 1 QB leagues, you've got to be looking at who's on your bench or even on the waiver wire and use Rodgers only in favourable matchups. Devontae Adams has gone to the Raiders, we know that, and he's struggling to get much going with his current receivers. Let's jump into one of our weekly segments now. It's the Rockstar Rookies. I'll just recap week 5, and it was the Consensus 101, Breece Hall. He was the rookie number 1 in week 5 with 27.7 PPR points. The overall RB4 this past week. So he's slowly been getting unleashed more and more by Robert Saleh for the green side of New York, if you like. And the snap share has increased for a 5th consecutive week. So he's played 69% of the snaps, that's his most. He's had 18 carries, that's his most. 97 rushing yards, that's his most. And he scored his 3rd touchdown of the year, his 2nd rushing touchdown in as many weeks. 2 targets for 2 catches, of course, for 100 yards, which is a bit of an outlier, but he has been getting used effectively in the receiving game as well. Now, let's have a look at Michael Carter and why this sudden emergence, if you like, from Breece Hall, but it hasn't been sudden. It's been gradual. So he's played 42% of the snaps this week. That's his least. It's decreased every week. He's had 10 carries, which is about normal, but he scored 2 touchdowns this week. Breece is a must start from here on out. If he gets the goal line carries, there's no doubt in my mind, in probably anyone you can ask, he will finish his rookie year as an RB1 of some sort. He will be in the top 12. So I mentioned earlier, because we're going to jump into the week 6 predictions for our Rockstar Rookies, and that I'd have some friends of the show on. So it is the Dynasty GOAT. He joined me for episode 3, I believe it was. So I've got a little video from Kev with his Rockstar Rookie for week 6.
Yo, this is Kevin Fantasy Wildcard here. You can follow me on Twitter at dynasty_goat. My ROCKSTAR rookie for week 6 is none other than Daniel Bellinger, tight end of the 4-1 New York Giants. So, the reason I really like him this week is he's facing the Ravens team that got smashed by Hayden Hurst in week 5. He scored a rushing touchdown in our very own London this week against the Packers, and he's a starting tight end for the Giants. He's playing over half the snaps, so he's going to get the volume, he's going to get the touchdown. And he's my ROCKSTAR rookie, Daniel Bellinger. Yo, this is Kevin Fantasy Wildcard here. You can follow me on Twitter at dynasty_goat. My ROCKSTAR rookie for week 6 is none other than Daniel.
Didn't mean for that to play a second time, but that's Kev with his week 6 prediction for the ROCKSTAR rookie. It was great when he came on the show. I'll share them links on Twitter if you want to go back and have a look at that one. But I mentioned Bellinger earlier in London with a rushing touchdown and things like that. For me, it's hard to look past Brees for this week against Green Bay. But I will. Let's not be boring and predictable. And if you follow me on Twitter or you've caught some of my 5-yard rush articles from the off-season, you'll not be shocked by this. It's Brian time. Ladies and gentlemen, Brian Robinson Jr. Firstly, it's remarkable that he's returned to a football field after missing just 4 weeks after being shot twice in his leg. And it's amazing to see him back so soon. And let's see what he can do now, because Gibson's role, Antonio Gibson, he had 2 good years, RB 11 and 12, I think, with a lot of passing work, but it's immediately declined in week 5 with the return of the Alabama Bulldozer. Now, I don't know if that's his nickname, but it should be. So he had a great senior year last year for Roll Tide, and he was the lead back. It was his only year as the lead back. He was with the likes of Najee Harris, Damian Harris there. And he was on a snap count in week 5, which is understandable after just returning from a horrific incident that seen him sidelined in his rookie season. But he still carried 9 times against the Titans. They did not give much up all day. But week 6, Washington need to get something going on offense anyway. But they face the Chicago Bears. So the second most rushing yards against the Bears in the whole league. It's 170 per game on average. They're conceding the 5th most rushing touchdowns, 1.6 per game. And they're letting up 21 points per game against opposing running backs. So it's a good matchup. He's likely going to see an increased workload over the coming weeks. If it's against that Bears run defense, which it's not very good, he could very well have a barnstormer. But thanks, Kev, for sending in the video. And I'll catch up with you soon. But the bye weeks, they are upon us. So Las Vegas, let's look at them first. In Superflex leagues, you've got Derek Carr as a QB2. Maybe even in bigger 1 QB leagues, sort of like 14, 16 team leagues, you'll be playing him as a QB1. He's missing this week. Josh Jacobs, mentioned him earlier. He's the RB4 in the year in PPR. He'll be missing this week. Devontae Adams, obviously, he's been hit and miss since moving from Green Bay. You've got Hunter Renfrow, who's had the injury. Darren Waller, he's only the tight end 14. They're all missing. Then you've got Detroit, who have been a bit banged up this season. So you've got Swift, who's been banged up, and then you've had Jamal Williams coming in. He was stealing goal line work anyway. Jared Goff, the quarterback, he's been having a decent year, QB9 on the year. Amon-Ra St. Brown, he's also been banged up, but he's been setting the league alight with that chemistry he had with Jared Goff from the year before when he got in. TJ Hawkinson, he's the tight end 3 on the year, but he's had that one monster week, averaging 13.1 points per game. He's missing. Then we've got Tennessee Titans, Derrick Henry, the most rushing attempts in the league, shock with 104, RB6. at minute. He's not going to be on your teams this week. Robert Woods, he's had a slow start in Tennessee coming off injury, but he's finding his feet now. Treylon Burks is obviously on IR, so you was missing him anyway. And then lastly, you've got the Houston Texans. Brandon Cooks, who's way below his usual standard. He's not had 100 yards yet this year. And Dameon Pierce, who the Florida prospect, he's come on leaps and bounds the last couple of weeks. He's beat out kind of whoever's been put in front of him. Marlon Mack was cut, Burkhead's rolled as the crease and things like that. You'll also be missing him. Favorite matchups of the week. Now, it's hard not to be biased here with Minnesota, of course. I think we're back. I don't know what happened there. Right. I'll move on anyway, but the usual segment we do every week is who we think will be the overall positional number one at each position. So usually me and whoever's on with me will pick who we think will be the QB1, RB1, etc. for the week. Explain a little bit why, have a little discussion about it. But obviously, I couldn't be joined by anyone this week, but I have got some friends in to help me out. So, firstly, the host of the 5 Yard Rush flagship show has sent in a video for who he thinks will be QB1 this week.
Hi all, I'm Dan Hughes from 5 Yard Rush flagship show. You may have seen me on. We're going to head to week 6 here for Lewis. QB1 overall has to be for me, Patrick Mahomes. Coming off a game where he threw 4 touchdowns against the Raiders, just shy of 300 yards, going up against what is a beaten up Buffalo Bills secondary. Game looks set to be a shootout, high score, at home in Kansas. It's got to be Patrick Mahomes, QB1 week 6 for me.
Patrick Mahomes for QB1 in week 6. Now, it has all the potential to be a shootout. I don't think you can sit anyone from any of your teams in that matchup. So, Juju has been a bit ropey. Obviously, lately you've got Travis Kelce. You're going to start him regardless. But I would be putting my eggs in them Kansas baskets. So, if you've got Juju, I'd start him. Kelce is going to see a lot of coverage from the DBs and whatnot from Buffalo. So I'd start Juju. He could get open a lot. Mahomes has given him the ball this year as well. So yeah, mine this week is Kyler Murray, which may be a bit of a surprise because Arizona have struggled this year a little bit. But I feel Kyler, he's going to find himself in a bit of a shootout, even with Seattle. Divisional matchup, Seattle are letting up a lot of points and a lot of fantasy football points to quarterbacks as well, over 20 on average. So if the Arizona defense aren't stepping up again and they're leaking points like they have been, Tyler Lockett, Geno Smith, all been mentioned. DK Metcalf is still there. Kyler's going to have to put on a show, and he's going to have to go through the air. Obviously, James Conner's been banged up as well. We don't know what we're going to get out of Eno Benjamin. But yeah, I'm going Kyler Murray with that one. So for running backs, I am joined by video message in from Connor Humpage, who was on last week. So let's see what Connor's got to say about running backs.
Good evening all. Lou's asked me to find the RB1 for this week, for week 6. And my pick is Aaron Jones for Green Bay against the Jets. Averaged almost 5 yards a carry against the Giants and 80 yards from scrimmage in a game where Rodgers stuttered with a poor performance with 25 out of 39 completions due to a poor receiving core, let's be honest, in that defeat to New York. I don't think I'll make the same mistake this week and go back to the 1-2 punch of Jones Dillon, with Jones getting the bulk of the workload. He's projected as RB10 for the week, but I think he's my number 1 pick for RB1 this week. The Jets are a mid-range defence against the run in 2022. They get up an average of about 114 points a game, but with a poor wide receiver core, as I said, with Rodgers, I can see Jones really being utilised this week. Jones is averaging 4.36 points per game in standard leagues, and I've been waiting for a decent matchup, so this is the one. I think it might be this week. Good luck, and let me know how you get on.
So that is Connor's video message for RB1. He's gone Aaron Jones. He had a bit of a blip in London, a little bit, but I think all of the Packers did really, much to my happiness. But mine is, I'm swinging for the fences a little bit, but I'm going Ramondre Stevenson. So it's a peachy matchup, against Cleveland. Now, Damian Harris, he probably won't play this week. He's likely to miss time, and Stevenson is a do-it-all running back. Played 90% of the snaps last week. He caught only 2 from 2, but on 25 carries, he stumped up 161 yards. So expect the receiving work to increase, maybe the rushes to dip slightly. But Cleveland, they're also letting up the 5th most rushing yards per game, over 138. If you've got Ramondre Stevenson on your roster, fire him up, no doubt. He's going to no doubt have an RB1 finish this week for me. But the overall RB1 ain't out of contention if he can nab a couple of touchdowns as well. Move on to wide receivers, and we have a video message from a guy who's been absolutely obliterated by the London games the last 2 weeks. But he sent in his message for the overall wide receiver 1 for week 6.
Evening, guys. My wide receiver 1 this week is Tyler Lockett versus the Arizona Cardinals. Let's be honest, Gino's cooking in Seattle at the minute. As much as it pains me to say it, he is the QB1 in fantasy at the minute. And Tyler Lockett is reaping the rewards of it. Lockett has not had a bad game since week 1. He's scored over 13 fantasy points in every week since then as well. He is the wide receiver 8 in fantasy this year. As I mentioned, he goes up against the Cardinals this year, who has a track record of success against. He's gone for over 200 yards and 2 scores in 2 games against Arizona last year. And that was nothing compared to 2020 against them when he had a 200-yard, 3-touchdown game. He has 6 touchdowns in his last 4 games against the Cardinals. This Cardinals defense is trash, and I've mentioned it on the pod before. Pick on this Cardinals defense. Start Tyler Lockett with confidence. Tyler Lockett, wide receiver 1. Big bold take of the week.
That was Jack. As you can tell, his voice is still repairing after his Giants beat the Packers in London this weekend, just gone. And it ain't a bad shout with Tyler Lockett. He likes playing against Arizona, clearly. And he is eating with Gino this year. But my shout, Jack was on in episode 4. Like I said, I'll share all them links on Twitter after. But my shout is Mike Evans for Tampa Bay. So he's the wide receiver 9 so far this season in PPR. He's only played 4 games. He missed week 3. 61 yards is his lowest in week 2, where I don't believe he was fully up to speed. Week 1 and week 2, he had a lot lower snap share than the last 2 weeks. So he's played a lot more snaps the last 2. But Pittsburgh, who they face in week 6, are terrible against wideouts. So that's why Evans will be wide receiver 1. Pittsburgh have let up over 1,100 yards, the most in the league. They've conceded 9 touchdowns to wide receivers, most in the league, and 166 fantasy football PPR points in 5 weeks to wide receivers. Again, most in the league. Enough said. Tom Brady as well, slowly finding his mojo the last couple of weeks. It all bodes well for Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, whoever else gets involved in Tampa to put on a show. Last but not least, so he featured in episode 1, which was an 18-team best ball draft. So he only jumped on at one point for a little bit where we was discussing the draft and things like that, but we do want to get Andy back on. Here is Andy Davis's prediction. Andy Davis from Wales, but the prediction is via America. And here is Andy with his tight end 1 for week 6.
Hi, Andy Davis here, or as you can find me on Twitter, at Andy David Sport. My number 1 tight end for this week is not Travis Kelce because they are playing the Buffalo Bills. So my tight end 1 for this week is going to be the Arizona Cardinals' Zach Ertz. Now, Zach Ertz has the 6th most receiving yards of any tight end this season, and only 4 tight ends have more receiving touchdowns than Ertz this season so far. And this week they're playing the Seattle Seahawks, who have the 2nd most points allowed this season and the 7th worst pass defense in the league. So if you've got him in your team, make sure you start him. If you haven't got him, if you can, go out and try and trade for him.
Absolutely love that shout from Andy. He did mention it in episode 1 that he is in America for 3 months. He's going round to as many NFL stadiums for as many NFL games as he can get in. He went late September, and I think he's been to 6 games already, which is absolutely unreal. And Zach Ertz is a great shout this week. As I said with Kyler earlier, potential to be a shootout. As Jack mentioned with Lockett, you've got Geno cooking. They're going to score points, but they're also letting up a lot of points. But mine is Tyler Higbee. Now, I hated Higbee pre-season. I don't think I drafted him at all. Might have grabbed him here and there, like in a best ball or whatever. But he has been peppered with targets this year so far. 48 targets over 5 games from Matthew Stafford. He's the clear number 2 target in LA behind Cup. Allen Robinson isn't living up to his expectations, if you like. And they face the Panthers this week, whose defense hasn't been great as a whole. But against tight ends, they have done okay. But then they're yet to face a team with a tight end who's going to get targeted near on 10 times. So it's a bit of a strange prediction, this, and I get it. But Higbee is playing more like a wide receiver this year. And I just feel there's going to be a week where he's going to grab a couple of touchdowns. And from all that volume, he's playing a lot of snaps. He's getting a lot of targets. He's reeling in a lot of them as well. And yeah, this is the week for me. Tyler Higbee, tight end 1. We'll see. It's bit me when I've gone out of the box with tight end before. I went with Dawson Knox, and I think he scored 2.5 points or something like that. But that is it. We have come to the end for this week. Next week, I have a great guest lined up already. Be sure to come and check that out. Whatever you're doing for week 6, have a great one. If you're meeting up with some fellow team fans or whatever, have a great time. Follow us on Twitter at Fantasy Knuts UK. It's there on the bottom of the screen. And yeah, unless you're playing me, I hope you win all your matchups this week.